The cruise ship has been the ultimate escape for many travelers all around the world. I mean, could it get any better than a floating resort where the most major decisions involve buffet choices and, I don't know, sunset viewing spots? But beyond the bright decks and wonderful hospitality, there's a reality, and a dark one at that. Once you board a ship to cross international waters, you also leave behind protections, the ones you only find on land. Cruise ships are designed to feel like the safest places imaginable. Cameras everywhere, security staff, medical teams, rules for everything. But the further a ship moves away from land, the less those systems matter. Because one thing out there does not care about comfort, laws, or intentions: the ocean. Sure, cruise lines promote the idea of luxury and peace of mind. The legal and practical systems that protect passengers are far more complex and sometimes shockingly fragile. Most cruise ships are not registered in the countries where their passengers actually come from, nor in the nations where they frequently sail. Instead, many operate under what is known as a flag of convenience. What does that mean? A ship might be staffed by crew from one country, owned by a company in some other country, sailing from a port that has nothing to do with either of these places. The funnier part? They could be legally controlled by a nation thousands of kilometers away, such as Panama, the Bahamas, or Liberia. Whichever offers lower taxes, reduced regulation, and more flexible labor and safety standards. Great for business. Not exactly the best for accountability. So if a serious incident happens at sea, a crime, a medical emergency, a disappearance, which country is responsible? Watch each of them try to dodge the blame. Believe it or not, as luxurious as a cruise trip sounds, it's not exempt of troubling factors like crime. And by crime, we're saying it can get as bad as sexual assault or even murder. Over the years, investigations, academic research, and U.S. congressional hearings have repeatedly identified sexual assault as one of the most commonly reported serious crimes on cruise ships. Alcohol-heavy environments, enclosed spaces, and sometimes an insane lack of supervision contribute to the risk. While on land, you have immediate access to independent law enforcement. On cruise, though, security staff on board work for the cruise line itself. The ship keeps moving. And by the time police from a port nation board, surprise, we're way past crucial time. In the United States, legislation like the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act was introduced to improve reporting transparency and require certain safety standards, including peepholes, security video retention, and crime reporting to federal authorities. Progress much? Only for specific ships. And for families seeking answers, the emotional toll is just made worse by legal complexity. Perhaps the most terrifying safety concern involves passengers, or even crew, going overboard. Take the past 2 decades, for instance. You'll see reports of over hundreds of people lost at sea from cruise ships and ferries all around the world. These could be suicides, alcohol overdose, foul play cannot be ruled out, and worst of all, no explanation. Modern technology does make a difference, like the motion sensing and thermal camera systems capable of automatically detecting when a person goes overboard. But these systems still haven't made it everywhere, and they are still capable of missing a potential detection at times. But the sea is vast. Temperatures fall. Currents carry bodies away. Not everyone is found. There's not much a search team can do when the tides aren't in their favor. Long before the world learned the word pandemic, cruise ships were already known as high-risk environments for viral spread. The outbreaks were insane, and they'd always come with a side of vomiting and diarrhea. We're talking about thousands of people sharing dining spaces and corridors, and of course, air. Another overlooked reality is medical care. Cruise ships do have medical centers staffed by trained doctors and nurses. These teams manage everyday issues, seasickness, minor injuries, infections, with professionalism. But they are still operating in a remote environment with really limited resources. If a passenger suffers a heart attack or a severe injury, the care you get on board is way different from the care you get on land. Evacuation, whether by helicopter or diversion to the nearest port, can also be slowed down due to weather or distance, and even coordination. It could take as long as hours at a time when even the wasting of a minute could change so much. Okay, we've made it to the most fundamental issue surrounding cruise ship safety: information control. The cruise industry operates across multiple jurisdictions. Companies may release safety statements. Investigative bodies issue reports, but there is no single global database tracking every crime, disappearance, accident, or medical fatality at sea. It's almost as if you're on your own over there. A grieving family would suffer the worst horrors in an environment as such. To be fair, cruise companies emphasize that incidents are statistically rare compared with the millions of passengers who sail safely every year. And of course, those facts deserve recognition. But safety experts could easily argue this doesn't erase systemic vulnerabilities. Because for passengers, risk is not theoretical, it is deeply personal. If the first concern is what happens on board, the second concern is what happens after something goes wrong. And this is where the wider problem reveals itself most clearly. Cruise ships operate across borders, but there is no fully unified global safety standard governing how every crime, disappearance, or accident must be investigated and reported. Instead, different nations apply different rules depending on where the ship is registered, where the incident occurred, and where the passengers are from. That patchwork creates uncertainty. Families seeking justice frequently discover that the process is slower, more complicated, and less transparent than they expected. The cruise line may cooperate with authorities, but it may also control initial evidence, records, or even staff access. For ordinary holidaymakers, this reality is rarely discussed before they travel. They have no idea what they're getting into. The truth exists below the surface, lying invisible until suddenly it's the only thing that matters. What passengers don't know very well is that their safety is linked closely to crew conditions. Crew members often work long contracts, long hours, and come from dozens of different countries. Many are dedicated, professional, and deeply committed to guest care. But critics argue that inconsistent labor protections in some jurisdictions can create fatigue, stress, or reluctance to report wrongdoing. Fatigue matters. In every safety-critical industry, aviation, medicine, road transport, we accept that tired workers make mistakes. At sea, mistakes may affect navigation, security oversight, or emergency response. While most cruise lines have strict rules and training systems, real-world pressures sometimes put all of those systems to test. Acknowledging this doesn't undermine crew professionalism. You're doing the whole world a favor by increasing safety by at least 1%. Here's the psychological trouble you could face on board. Cruise ships feel like self-contained worlds. Guests sleep there, eat there, shop there, socialize there. Security guards are visible, staff are friendly, doors lock, everything feels controlled. That sense of order creates an impression that nothing truly serious can happen. And in most cases, it doesn't. But psychologists point out that perceived safety doesn't always equal actual safety. The absence of visible threat can make people less cautious. We mean especially when you're under the influence of stimulants. The same relaxed environment that attracts people to cruises can also reduce their awareness of risk, particularly late at night, on open decks, or in unfamiliar cabin corridors. This doesn't mean passengers should live in fear, but it also doesn't mean they should be fully unaware either. Cruise lines invest heavily in sanitation. The math of close contact cannot be ignored. Norovirus outbreaks have been documented regularly over the last 2 decades, not only on cruise ships, but also in hospitals, schools, and care facilities. Cruise ships receive attention partly because outbreaks occur in highly visible, contained environments where every case is counted. Most norovirus cases resolve fast enough, but the disruption, isolation measures, deep cleaning protocols, itinerary changes reminds passengers that disease doesn't respect holiday plans. COVID-19 made that lesson global. Ships that once symbolized carefree escape suddenly became focal points for emergency response. Reviews of those incidents have led to updated protocols, vaccination policies during different periods, and enhanced health screening. Still, doctors stress a simple truth. Any environment where thousands of people mix closely, share dining utensils, touch railings, press elevator buttons, and gather indoors will always require the most robust infection control planning. Speaking of crowded environments, another area of safety relates not to crime or illness, but operations. Navigation mistakes are rare, but when they occur, consequences can be serious. Mechanical failures, fires, or power losses, though uncommon, have occurred over the years, occasionally leaving ships drifting without full electrical capability. International maritime training standards and emergency drills exist precisely because the sea is unpredictable. Weather, too, is a factor. Modern cruise ships are technologically advanced, but storms, rough seas, and high winds still affect comfort and, at times, safety. Captains make routing decisions to avoid risk, but the ocean is a dynamic environment. Unlike land-based hotels, cruise ships cannot simply stop and wait. And then there's something even more dramatic than bad weather: rogue waves. Now I'm sure your mind would go, big waves. But that, my friends, does not even begin to describe it. They are horrifying, rare, but they do occur to those with no luck. We're talking towering walls of water that can rise more than twice as high as the surrounding sea, appearing suddenly, and you know what's worse? They can occur with no warning. At least in the case of tsunamis, you'd get a warning from the triggers following an earthquake. But these rogue waves? They form in the open ocean when wave systems collide and concentrate massive amounts of energy into one steep crest. Scientists only officially confirmed their existence in the 1990s after the famous Draupner wave was recorded in the North Sea, a wave so huge it blew researchers' minds. Never again did they conclude sailors were exaggerating. While modern cruise ships are designed to withstand rough seas, a true rogue wave can strike at angles you'd never expect and smash through the windows, causing irreversible damage. There have been documented incidents of passenger ships being hit, injuring people, flooding cabins, and sending furniture and glass flying. They are incredibly rare, yes, but they are also one of the most unpredictable risks at sea. At the end of the day, the ocean still writes its own rules. That's enough seasickness for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.